Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke, joined by the man, Ryan Hansen, with maybe the best job in the world. Also, a freshly minted U of A to be father. Hello, Ryan Hansen.
Hello, Mike Luke. Back the A. Got to start there. Excited about being on the podcast, man.
All right, I got to ask you a question. Was there ever a doubt, though, that your son would go to the U of A?
I don't know if doubt was the right word, but we tried to let him carve his own path as he decided what school to go to. Obviously, Arizona here in the backyard. Have a couple degrees myself. My wife is an alum as well. So clearly we kind of said, hey, pretty good things going on campus at the University of Arizona. And that's where he'll be come August, mid-August. We're excited.
Absolutely. Now, before we get started, what's going on with Bon Voyage Travel? Fill us in.
I'll tell you what, travel is off the charts. This summer is going to be the largest travel season on record in regards to the number of people that'll transit airports in the United States. And so, you know us, we're here locally. We're your local travel agency, and we love planning vacations. That's why you talk about, I have one of the best jobs out there. Arizona basketball commentator, and I get to plan and go on vacations all the time. Like, come on, who wouldn't want to do that?
All right, now, Rhino, where have you gone this off season so far?
This off season, it's really what's coming next month. I'll be headed to Iceland and Greenland. So getting out of the heat. I think the high temperature on the trip is forecasted to be 55 beautiful degrees.
I was going to say Iceland, which is green, and Greenland, which is ice, correct?
You got it right.
All right. I admire from afar while you're boots on the ground. So, all right. We got a lot to get to this show, Rhino. First and foremost, though, Caleb Love is back. And I was thinking about this morning. I didn't want to look it up. I can't remember the last time an All-American came back to the U of A for another year. I mean, just off the top of my head, I think you probably have to go back to maybe like Jason Gardner after his junior year. I don't.
Yeah. And he wasn't even like a first teamer or second teamer.
Yeah, But I think you got to go back a ways.
And in the Pantheon, right? Sean Elliott, of course, would have been, first teamer coming off that 88 run to his Wooden Award season as a senior in 89. I know there's a few others that you might think of that became first teamers in their return that were on the cusp of Bibby, Miles Simon, MOP coming back. So don't want to put too much pressure on Caleb by any means, but having that talent, and most importantly, I'm going to go to this with the experience of a Caleb Love coming back to this roster. You look at the final four teams of the last 2 years, and I believe, if I did my math and my research correctly, there might have only been one freshman in the starting lineup of any Final Four teams of the last 2 years. So double check that. I might be wrong. I think Alex Caravan 2 years ago with UConn, I think might have been the only freshman, and there might have been a red shirt or something. So this is where the COVID years kind of blur, blur it a little bit. But point being, you cannot teach experience. You cannot have someone who has that many shots, that much experience. You just can't teach that with an incoming freshman. And as talented as freshmen can be, I love the fact that our starting two guard has this much firepower and experience with Caleb Love.
And that's what baffled me this offseason. We would get a lot of people, and they're wrong. I mean, generally I'm wrong and they're right, but they're wrong on this one. That would be like, oh, I'd rather have the freshman. No, you wouldn't. You know what you have with Caleb Love. He was an All-American. He was the conference player of the year. Now, granted, it didn't end on a great note. I get that. But think about it this way. Like with, people think of players as finished products. Khalid Reeves didn't average 24 points a game as a freshman. He averaged 7 points per game. I mean, very few shooting guards are ready to come in. I mean, you saw Gilbert, obviously, he was ready, but very few shooting guards are ready to come in and be all conference caliber players immediately, Rhino.
And you look at guys that everyone in the Arizona Wildcat family would look back fondly on and say, wow, that guy was super talented. Wow. What was he like as a freshman, though, are the questions. And you pointed out Khalid Reeves. How about Andre Iguodala? Long, great tenure in the NBA. And everybody goes, man, if we just had a guy like Andre. Let's not forget, he couldn't crack the starting lineup his freshman year. He and Hassan Adams came off the bench. Did they help Arizona have a tremendous year, get to the Elite Eight? That level of talent? Yes, but it was more with Andre was the potential, right? The ceiling was super high. Did Arizona completely realize Andre Iguodala's full potential in college? No, We didn't. No. We flat out didn't. And so your point of Caleb Love coming back, and now for Caleb, right? The growth opportunity for him is there. And I can only imagine that's where Tommy Lloyd's got to step in and develop Caleb. Don't just develop, KJ from freshman to sophomore, Jaden now keys to the kingdom as the starting point guard. The team is yours. Develop Caleb. How can he make people better? How can he take better shots? How can he know how to impact the game in more ways than just the spurtability, as Clark Kellogg would call it, on the offensive end?
What I'm excited to see, too, is that uptick in efficiency. And this is where you can't judge a book by its cover. Everybody's like, oh, he'll always shoot 31% from the field. He came here, shot almost 43%, which is up from, 36% the previous year. I think there's two next steps for Caleb Love, besides the one you mentioned. Getting even a little bit more efficient, maybe getting that into that 45, 46 realm. And Rhino, there's a lot of guys that can just shoot three-pointers. I'm fine with him shooting threes, but this is a dude that can get to the bucket. I would like to see him be able to consistently pencil him in for 5-6 free throws per game, because I think he limits himself when he settles for the three a little bit too much.
Yeah, he needs to become that fully three-dimensional, three-level scorer, because he's got the mid-range game as too, the floaters there, and it really is efficiency across the board. I love how you're pointing out the shooting efficiency. That's the most obvious ones. But if you look back last year, in his career, highest assist-to-turnover ratio, most number of rebounds, most number of steals in his career. So you take some of those other categories. Can he increase his efficiency as an offensive player, not just shooting, not just getting more to the rim, not just getting more free throws, but cutting down turnovers? And he had some uncharacteristic turnovers. The guy has dribbled off his toe a few more times than you would expect a 3- and 4-year player to do. Cut those down, distribute more, and really, truly be a well-rounded offensive player.
You know what this also comes down to is not judging a book by its cover. Tommy Lloyd always goes to say, and you're behind the scenes in the program, this. Caleb Love's very well liked behind the scenes. He's very well liked by his teammates, by the coaches, everything. He has not been a problem child at all.
No, you have to really look at and judge him for what he's given Arizona. Not get back into, well, this is what he was as a Tar Heel. Allow and afford these kids, because let's get real, they still are kids, the opportunity to grow, to improve. The Mike Luke, a 20-year-old Mike Luke, you're still a little immature now. I can only imagine what you were at 20.
Look at me, man. I have the Brian Jeffries maturity level at this stage right now.
Oh, wow. Now you're really raising the bar if you throw the GOAT in there.
Yes, I'm absolutely going to throw the GOAT in there. All right. Now, wanted to get your take on something first with Tommy Lloyd, where I think Tommy Lloyd's proven some things to a few people. But first, guys, I messed up at the beginning of the show. That's sponsored today, OG's Flavoring Friday. Welcome to the PHNX Wildcats show. Shout out to OG's Brands, the official sponsor of Flavoring Fridays. Head on over to OG's Brands to see their full lineup, including the newest gummies, OG's Naturals, the big OGs, and to find out where you can purchase. Check them out. All right, Rhino. There is this impression that's out there because the Tommy Lloyd's a nice guy, that he's a pushover. And that could not be the furthest thing from the truth. Look at this, look at this past offseason, for example. And again, I'm not saying whatever happened, but I think you clearly looked and you're like, Jaden Bradley needs to be able to take a little bit more of a prominent role on this basketball team. Check. That's going to be in there. Oumar Ballo, who Tommy Lloyd loves and was an all-conference guy, but in this day and age where it's NIL and you've still got to be able to, put everything into perspective, Arizona let him go. Mo Krivas coming in as well. And again, not on bad terms or anything, but Tommy Lloyd can make some tough decisions here. It's not just this, pat on the back, aw shucks type stuff, Rhino.
Well, you pointed it out, the two guys that he had to part ways with, either what was best for the student athlete or best for Arizona. And I think it was mutual in both cases, was Kylan Boswell and Oumar Ballo. And you look at both those guys, Oumar truly looks at Tommy as a pseudo father figure, as he should. And I think Tommy treats him and feels in kind that he's somewhat of an adopted son, more so than just regular player. And Kylan Boswell, one of the first recruits to sign up for Tommy Lloyd's Arizona program, one of the first people to say, I believe in what he's going to do. it was in the best interest for both of those guys, either NIL reasons, playing time, not the right fit, just not really what Arizona needed for the 2024-2025 season. Those were tough decisions. And Tommy, good guy Tommy, says, I love you guys. I'm going to ride it out with you. No matter where it takes us, you're my guys.
Right.
Be the head coach in Division I basketball. Sometimes you have to say, hey, I love you. It's in the best interest of both of us for you to go somewhere else. And in both cases, that way, I think that's true.
Yeah, I think that's very much the case. And that opens the door for Jaden Bradley, where I think Jaden Bradley, what I really liked about him, Rhino, two things. First of all, I think people are going to see that he can shoot a little bit better than people think. The form isn't broken. It's not we've seen some bad forms around here at the UFA over the years. It's not that. But you know what I really like too? In that Clemson game, when everybody was kind of, standing around, the one dude that was getting to the bucket, that was keeping Arizona in that game and basically was saying, you can follow me, but I'm going this way, it was Jaden Bradley. I think that, he opened a lot of eyes in the NCAA tournament. I'm very excited to see what he can do with a full season playing 30-plus minutes.
And given the confidence, right,
Yes.
that it's your team, you're starting, I'll add to what you're saying, because I couldn't agree more that his offensive game is coming around and I think will really blossom come this year because of the outside shot, confidence, his ability to get to the rim. I'm going to throw another thing at you that you've seen in the NBA. It's not just about a quick first step. It's not just about the ability to finish at the rim. Let's look at how Jaden Bradley can finish at the rim. He has some of the best breaks in college basketball, right? It's John Wooden has used a phrase years and years ago. It's not about just being quick. It's about having that change of speed, change of direction, the ability to go from slow to quick.
Right.
I'll add slow to quick to slow.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving, how does he finish at the rim? He blitzes past you, and then he can put the brakes on and let you fly by and finish almost uncontested. Granted, he finishes incredibly well contested shots, but Jaden has that. Watch his game in this past year. He can get past you with a quick first step, but then he puts the brakes on as well as anybody we've seen in the recent past.
I think he's going to be an amazing fit in the Big 12 as well. Because the one thing about it is that Arizona, when you go into the Big 12, and Tommy Lloyd obviously has had a lot of success, but I don't know that there's been a really next level point guard. Solid play, but not next level. Jaden Bradley to me looks like he could be an all conference guy. And let's talk about the defensive end. I mean, you were up close and personal, obviously, with the GOAT against Clemson. They were calling fouls on him that weren't fouls, but it was just like, man, this guy is getting his hands on every single loose ball. He's blocking shots. He's getting steals. He was almost the victim of his own success at times there, Rhino.
Yeah, Arizona will not compromise defensively at the point guard spot with Jaden Bradley. And you look back and there's been, almost polar opposites at the point guard spot. Not that Kylan was bad, but he was not stout defensively by any means. But you look at what TJ McConnell gave Arizona defensively, incredible. Obviously, Jason Terry, incredible defender for the Wildcats. But Mike Bibby, I love the dude, but he was not Arizona's best perimeter defender.
Can you please expand on that a little bit? Because I tell people this all the time, and they're always like, well, he led the team in steals. Rhino, please go ahead.
He led the team in steals because Michael Dickerson was guarding the best perimeter player, and he was causing havoc, and errant passes were created. So bad passes led to steals for Mike Bibby. It wasn't on the ball pilfering. It was weak side help, grab a lob pass going over the top. I'm going to go steal it. Mike Bibby, he led the team in steals, but Michael Dickerson was the best on-ball defender. And I see Jaden Bradley.
And JT was the best JT was the best defensive point guard as well. So go ahead.
True point guard for us. So where Jaden Bradley can take us defensively is special. He's not just going to be a good defender at the point of attack. He's going to be an outstanding elite level defender for the Wildcats, and they will need it in the Big 12 when you look at how good the perimeter play that Arizona is going to face. You're not like, well, Jaden's got to get 18 points to really impact the game. He can do it on both ends of the floor.
Right. And what I always look at with guys that I look at their shooting form. Now, Jaden shot 44% from the field. Granted, it was in very few attempts. I get all that, but I don't think he's going to surprise some people this year. Like there were some guys here, and this is, it's no disrespect because he played in the NBA. But a guy like Mustafa Shakur, with that form, you were just never going to be a consistent 3-point shooter. I look at Bradley, and that thing's not broken, Rhino. I think that he just needs a little bit of confidence. I think he's going to surprise some people. I really do.
I agree. I think his jump shot's a little slower than it
It is,
needs to
for
be,
sure.
so he might need to pick up some of the speed on that. But in the Tommy Lloyd offense,
Mhm.
with a Caleb Love attracting a ton of attention, with a Trey Townsend attracting some attention now offensively at the 4 spot, I think that could give Jaden Bradley more open looks, and he won't necessarily have to worry about creating his own jump shot this coming year. But that's something I think he needs to work on: the step back, creating space, knocking down contested shots. But I think he's going to find himself more open with jumpers because of the players around him offensively. And he's got to be that consistent, knock down the open shot guy and develop into the I can create my own jump shot moving forward.
You mentioned Trey Townsend. I've got a bold take here for you. I think Trey Townsend's going to average 4+ assists per game this year. Calling my shot right now, Rhino.
Not crazy. A, he's got the skill set to do so. B, in the Tommy Lloyd offense, there's going to be opportunity to be more of a facilitator. And so while, Keyshawn Johnson I was incredibly good and so important for Arizona, I think he surprised many with his offensive skills. I think that's why he's rising up draft boards, because people are finally seeing that he can be a good offensive player. But I think Trey Townsend is a more dynamic offensive player, clearly a better shooter. I think he's going to open some eyes offensively. We'll maybe take a step back with Trey on what Keyshawn did for Arizona defensively. I don't think he's going to be that multi-dimensional guard multiple players guy. But Trey, 4 assists from your power forward would really add to that arsenal.
What I also really like about Trey Townsend and why I love that they prioritized him is come NCAA tournament time, there's been times where Arizona needs some guys that can also just get buckets. That you look at it this past year, basically it was Jaden Bradley. You can float around the perimeter, but a lot of times there's going to be games that are going to slow down and you need to be able to get guys who need to the free throw line, get buckets. Keyshawn Johnson was fantastic, and we're going to get back to Keyshawn here in a second, but Keyshawn really wasn't somebody that you could dump the ball to and say, hey man, we need you to be able to get the free throw line, something. Trey Townsend, when you look at his games against the best teams that he went against, and some people will be like, well, he wasn't uber efficient. I don't care. You dropped 31 and 13 on North Carolina State that's going to the Final Four. You dropped 17 and 11 on Kentucky. You dropped 21 and 13 against Illinois. Xavier, same thing. You still got to be able to score the ball, and he's somebody that has a knack for scoring. He's going to be totally different than Keyshawn, but I don't know that he can't be every bit as impactful.
Agreed, and that's exciting because of what you just said. NCAA tournament time, the stats you're throwing out were NCAA tournament quality teams, slower play, very important possession by possession, and I think that he has that well-rounded offensive game, and you need more players that can get you buckets when things break down, and you can't play the fast tempo. You can't just get out and run like Arizona wants to do all the time. I still think it can be effective in the NCAA tournament, but as we have seen games throughout Arizona's pantheon of losses in the NCAA tournament, without enough offensive firepower and weapons, you just seem to fall short.
And that's why you can never have too many offensive weapons. And so that's why I'm very enthused by that. Now, a guy that I think is going to make a big step as well. Let's talk a little bit of Mo Krivas. Now, listen, Oumar Ballo, like I've said a billion times, I never thought that Oumar was going to become the player that he did. And this is no disrespect. And because everybody needs a team player like this, I always thought he was going to be a Gene Edgerson type. I mean, obviously bigger, but, comes in, gives you 10, 12 solid minutes, throw some elbows, the bike knee pads are all over on the court. People need that. I never thought he would be a 15 and 10 type guy, Rhino, that would be able to get $1 million or whatever on the NIL market. But that being said, Mo Krivas has some natural offensive skills that Oumar, as good as he is, will never have. Not saying he'll be better than Oumar, but he's definitely got some natural offensive skills that Oumar doesn't have.
Yeah, when I look at the two players and kind of side-by-side comparison, how do they go about their business on the offensive end? I always talked about in gameplay that Oumar did his work before he got the basketball. Yeah. When he could be the most effective for Arizona, he would bury you in the post. He would run the floor. He would post up right in front of the rim, and it was lights out if he could get to 1 foot away from the rim. Mo Krivas much different from that. I don't think Mo Krivas' best offensive game is going to be done before he catches the ball. Granted, he has to do his job, get a foot advantage, get great position. Mo Krievis has skills after he catches the ball that Oumar Ballo just never truly developed consistently. You get Oumar Ballo back to the basket on the block. If he could get you a one-step drop step to the rim, effective. Mo Krievis has some offensive bag and swag to be able to finish over both shoulders, use the dribble a little bit. The one step for Mo that is going to be really important to move from freshman to sophomore is finishing consistently above the rim.
Yes.
Got to get him to dunk more. In this level of play with the athleticism that's going to be thrown at him, with his size, he'll be able to finish around the rim as a Euro can, but he's going to have to take it stronger to the rim and really start finishing with dunks versus just the flips and the dips. And I think Dusan Ristic would be a great guy to look back at that kind of had to develop that.
And no more of the gather dribble. We don't need any of that. When the ball goes down, it was basically gone every single way the other way. No more of that, Rhino. You're on the ground.
Too many quick hands. Yeah, you make 7-2 become 6-2 all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, yes, exactly. Now, KJ Lewis. I have been giving sheer crap about KJ Lewis for the last 2 years. This was a recruiting miseval of recruiting misevals. When you look at him, and Sheer admits it, but when you look at him, I watched KJ for 5 minutes, and I could tell that's not what a fringe 100 player looks like. I mean, I don't know. That's obviously not my job, but that's not what they're supposed to look like. This is a kid that was much, much better than that, and he showed people. And athletically, he's fantastic. He was built to play basketball. But Rhino, he's got a real nose for the ball. And I think that's something that's very understated. He understands basketball. I'm very excited to see that next step from him this year.
Yeah, he's the guy that you just all of a sudden looked up and he was around the ball, either on the glass or defensively, all the time. I've gone back. One of my favorite pastimes, like you, is when there's no sports on television that I care about, which we're getting into that season right
we're
now
here.
Because the NBA's over, etc. I go back and watch games from the past. And so I was watching the UCLA home game from this past season and Arizona's comeback. And the guy who led the comeback was KJ Lewis.
Right.
And it wasn't because he had the ball and he was shaking and baking. It was what he did off the ball that was so exciting because he has that knack. You and I have talked about not putting too much pressure on guys as they matriculate through the system. I'm going to change my tune. I'm putting pressure on KJ Lewis. He has to step up. It's time for him to elevate that freshman to sophomore jump. He needs to become a focal point offensively for Arizona. He needs to demand and command scouting reports that go, don't let KJ get the ball. Don't let him take one dribble baseline because he's going to dunk on you. Watch out because he's a sneaky good three-point shooter. Be careful because he's got that one dribble pull up at the free throw line because he can jump over the top of you. It's time for KJ Lewis to showcase what you and I have seen, those physical tools, the high basketball IQ. It's time to show that it's his opportunity.
I don't see why he can't be. And again, we're going to get to the Big 12 and it's the best conference in the country. I totally get that. I see no reason why he can't be part of that 10-man all Big 12 team. I mean, I look around, there's not many guys that I would take over KJ Lewis. And again, I think that you're going to really see him make that jump because he also wants it. This isn't going to be a situation where you're like, well, how hard is he really going to work this offseason? Is he going to show up in shape? Make no mistake, just like everybody else, he wants to be in the NBA in a year. And he knows that, he knows there's things he's got to do. However good he can be this year is how good he's going to be. You're not going to have to worry about, well, did he really put in the time this offseason? It's not one of those situations.
Yeah, he demonstrated in every game his commitment level and effort level on the defensive end and on the glass, right? Two no nonsense, kind of the dirty plays, the low accolade plays. He was willing and able to put forth whatever he needed to help the team as a freshman. Right. That shows me that now that his opportunities will be more frequent on the offensive end, that the offseason work to develop his ball handling skills, develop again that one dribble pull up, a little step back. His offensive game needs to evolve, and I think it will because of the character and the person that he is that we've seen in those other areas. I think it'll show up as a sophomore on the offensive end.
I also think this is the starting perimeter that's most equipped under Tommy Lloyd era to go into the Big 12, where you've got Jaden Bradley, you got Caleb Love, and you got KJ Lewis. That feels like three players that Kelvin Sampson would deploy. Or somebody like that. This is a very fun unit going into Big 12 play.
Yeah, no disrespect to the Kirk Creases of the world, to the Cedric Hendersons, to the Justin Kyers, right? Those guys were really important, needed
Mhm.
for the time. But when you look at defensive abilities, you look at length, you look at athleticism, you look at good size across the board. The three players that we've talked about, Bradley, Love, and Lewis, are probably the most likely to become NBA players of anyone in that
Right.
crew. And that's what you need at the Big 12 level. You have to have well-rounded, tough, hard-nosed guys that are going to get their nose in the muck of the lane
Right.
and the paint as an offensive player and a defensive player. I love these three moving into an absolute star-studded, I mean, everything we knew last year when the Big 12 was
Yeah.
becoming a real thing for us is even more so. What is it going to be? 5 preseason
Top
top
10
10
teams.
teams? Come on. Are you
Exactly.
kidding? It's ridiculous.
I was thinking about this, Rhino, because even in the Pac's heyday, you would always have Arizona, UCLA, and Stanford. You'd have three, and then there might be like a fringe, like and I almost said Ernie Kent. Who was before? Jerry Green had a couple nice
Wow,
teams in
let's
there.
go way back. Yeah.
Jerry,
The Oregon, the Washingtons would kind of
Bob
slip in
Bender had a
there.
nice team here and
Yeah,
there.
Cal might throw a little crazy, decent
Right.
team with Sean Lampley. Let's go way back, So.
But there was only generally just three. Sean Lampley, by the way. Or how about ASU with Bill Frieder, the one team with
Mario Bennett, the one team. I love that you said that.
The one team.
Emphasis on the
Never
one
able
team.
to build that on that, but the one team. But the only thing I can really think of, Rhino, is maybe the ACC back where you had, because you obviously you had Duke, Carolina. You had a couple years where Wake Forest, obviously with Tim Duncan and Chris Paul was really good, but there was never really those consistent. Arizona is consistent. They're going to be there. Kansas is consistent. They're going to be there, along with trying to think. As long as Kelvin Sampson's there, they're going to be good. Same thing
Scott
with
Drew's.
Drew.
He's made a commitment. He had
Right.
opportunities and overtures to leave. He has essentially said, "Baylor's my school. As long as he's there, they're going to be outstanding."
These are players and these are franchises that aren't really going anywhere. And let's be honest here, I cannot wait to see Arizona and Kansas, because Kansas, to me, and again, I get UConn is right. UConn is at the top. I get it. But when I think right now, the two programs that are probably at the peak of college basketball, I believe right now are UConn and Kansas. I believe that they have the most the stability, the roster. I can't wait to see how Arizona measures up, and I expect them to do quite well, Rhino.
Yeah, success in the NCAA tournament start there, right? Most NBA players of the recent past that have made impacts at their school, obviously, Kentucky and Duke have a lot of NBA players, but did they make the true impact while they were on campus, or did everything come afterwards?
Right.
I think UConn and Kansas can say these guys are making an impact here. Probably the two best coaches, at least most decorated, in Danny Hurley and Bill Self. I couldn't agree more. I'm excited about the alignment now that Arizona and Kansas can be in the same conference. But there's a couple other schools that just you haven't mentioned, and will be in the conversation.
Iowa
State. TJ Ossenberger's done an incredible job there. You want to talk about a tough place to play? Hilton.
Hilton.
Ooh, yeah. Underrated.
Right.
Very, very underrated. If you're not in the Big 12, you don't think of it as a difficult place to play. I'm excited to play there. Look at what's going on at Kansas State with Tang, just getting Coleman Hawkins from Illinois. What a great pickup there. There is a higher level, and this isn't disrespectful to the Iowa State and Kansas State. I'm saying that they're kind of mid-level conference teams, only because they haven't, made that Final Four run in the recent past. Those teams are higher level than anything we saw in the Pac-12 in that mid-range.
Well, exactly. And I think you could make the case, if you're Kansas State, you're competing for a top 3 Pac-12 seed, and Kansas State, like you said, kind of that mid-level tier. And again, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Then you got other schools too. You think about it for a second. A Central Florida is kind of a one that we don't even, they were probably the worst team in the conference last year. Guess what? They beat Kansas and Baylor. I mean, when you're the worst team in the conference and you beat Kansas and Baylor, that's a feather in your cap as far
West
as
Virginia has been to the Final Four more recently than Arizona, so let's not sleep on the Mountaineers and how difficult that roadie's going to be.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get to that. I want to get to the bench talk, but first, the Desert Financial Credit Union. All right. Maybe everybody's not like Ryan Hansen and they're not living the dream. You got a lovely family, you got Bon Voyage travel, you're calling games, and you're like, man, I could use an extra $200. Desert Financial Credit Union is here for you. When you open, and for Ryan Hansen, if you would like, when you open a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desert.com or desertfinancial.com/200. Many Desert Financial credit unions all over. Check it out again. And who doesn't want $200? That could also maybe go towards a trip. I don't know. Maybe with Bon Voyage travel, perhaps. Maybe you want to Maybe you want to go to Greenland or Iceland, where it is ice and it is green, but vice versa. Either way, check it out. Desert Financial Credit Union. Get that 200. All right, the bench. So I'm going to give myself a little credit here. I discovered Tobe Awaka on campus before anybody else did. I was in culinary dropout, and lo and behold, I see Murph there. I'm like, what's Murph doing? And Murph's pretending that he doesn't see me. You know how Murph gets. He's very, Oh, yeah. And then so I texted him and I said, Murph, who is that you were with? And then he pretends that he doesn't see the text message, even though he's texting furiously. So then finally I just went up to him, but it was there with Tobe Awaka. And these are the kind of guys you need in the Big 12 to come off the bench. He's a big dude. He's 6'8", 250, 5 points or 6 points, 5 rebounds in 13 minutes. Yes, he commits a lot of fouls, but Tommy Lloyd can figure that one out. But again, physicality off the bench in the Big 12. Big men, grown trap muscles. We need more of those, Rhino.
Yeah, this is a hard hat kind of a guy, right? In the painted area, he's not going to back down to anybody. I don't want to label him as an enforcer. Would be almost okay, I will, but it's a little unfair because I think his potential to contribute more than just fouls and tough rebounds, his potential is there. And I believe that's why he's coming here. I think he wanted to have the opportunity to get away from the label of enforcer. I only come in just to throw elbows and grab rebounds, which he will do. Let's not deny that. That's in his bag. But I think he's got an opportunity here to expand himself offensively, run the floor, use that athleticism that he does have in addition to his size. But you need more guys like him in the Big 12. And Tommy recognized that the interior was either going to be extremely raw with Emmanuel Stevens as a true freshman, who, by the way, incredible physical talent. He's going to really, I think, shock some people.
A young Coloco.
I like that. That is a fair comparison.
Can use that.
But you got the experience with Awaka in the SEC, played a ton of minutes there with Tennessee, really good program of the recent past, played high-level basketball. He's an exciting addition to the team, and he's going to earn tons and tons of minutes.
Where I thought was really impressive with getting a guy like Anthony Del Orso. This is a guy that at Campbell averaged 20 points per game. Everybody always wants shooters, shooting 45%, and he comes in here, Rhino, and got this unfairly good. Didn't ask anything about guaranteed playing time. Didn't ask anything about that. Wants to be here and is a 2-year type dude. I'm excited to see what he can do. And keep in mind, too, Sed Henderson came there from Campbell as well, and they're totally different players. I get it. But if you're talking a 7th or an 8th guy and maybe not a starter, Sed Henderson's fantastic. I mean, in that role for anybody. So you get a guy that, is putting up even better numbers than that. And granted, totally different player. I think he's going to make an impact, Rhino. And I think he's going to be one of those 3 guys for sure off the bench.
Experience, shot making, like you said, was leaned upon in his previous school to be an offensive weapon, kind of primary one, right? He was the guy. He's not going to be that here. So that takes the pressure off. Doesn't have to worry about creating his own all the time. He can be the beneficiary of Caleb Love. One of the key things, though, Mike, that I think needs to happen is I do not want him to fall into the Paulius Morauskas, Philly B trap, right? Is he going to get enough playing time? Because defensively, that's not his number one forte. So will Tommy Lloyd allow Del Orso to contribute in the other ways? And where you may have to shade, you may have to do some different things defensively when he's on the floor, or be tactical when you give him minutes, depending on the matchup that he's guarding on the other end. You may have to be creative but I think we need to, hopefully, I say we, Tommy's the one that needs to allow him to grow into that.
Let me ask you this. Philly B, I'm very much excited to watch Philly B at New Mexico. How his per 40 minutes, how many shot attempts is Philly B getting up?
Oh, he could be in the 15, 16 range.
I was going to say, Rhino, I think we're looking at about a shot per minute, or a shot per minute, 40 shots.
Wow.
A shot I'm going to shot. He's Damon basically at this point. I'm going to shot every 2 minutes in New Mexico. I'm look forward to watching Philly B.
Yeah, another really good kid, probably in a better situation,
yes.
right? Just the right move for him. But I don't want Del Orso to fall into that role of just on the fringe of the 8-man rotation, and he never really gets in early enough in the season in impactful minutes, significant minutes to be able to grow, learn, fill into the system. I hope he's in that rotation because of the shot making and the experience that he brings.
So let's talk Carter Bryant now. Carter Bryant to me is fascinating because we've had his father on a number of times. His brother Trevon Deshaun's brother was a McDonald's All-American, went to Missouri. I actually remember him. He played against Reggie Geary when he was a freshman, and Reggie was a senior at Mater Dei in Linwood. And he said it was Reggie's one of the meanest dunks he's ever seen. I've asked Reggie about this, and he said, "Yeah, that was a big one for me." But very rarely do you see a parent that basically says, he comes on here and I said, do you view your kid as a one and done, a two and done? And he says, honestly, I know this sounds cliche. I don't think about it like that. He says, if my kid's going to be in school 4 years, cool. If he's going to be in school 1 year, he says, I'm turning him over to Tommy Lloyd. Tommy Lloyd is the one that we signed up to play for. He says, I'm going to trust his judgment on all of that. He says, because he's given me no reason not to trust his judgment. So I just thought it was very interesting in this day and age where everybody is looking for, kind of that instant, how many minutes are you going to give me? How many, all of that stuff. I just thought it was very interesting there, Rhino.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Carter. It has great potential, great upside, but could contribute right away in many ways. So when I say potential, I don't want to say I don't think he'll have some significant minutes and contributions as a freshman. But I do agree with you. And no disrespect to families that have a different plan.
I get it.
And have a different idea of what college basketball is to them. I think Deshaun's background, his understanding of this is a marathon, not a sprint. My son's basketball career, however short or long it will be, it's all about developing and preparing him for the longest possible, most fruitful career. And it's not about getting the quick paycheck right away, getting to the next level because, I'm worried about my son's second contract in the NBA and he needs to be 20 when that happens, not 22 when that happens. You start micromanaging that, and guess what? That second contract never comes because the first contract never comes.
Exactly.
And I think they've really got a grounded approach to, if he's a one and done and the talent and the opportunity is there, then so be it. If it takes longer, so be it. I want my son to be happy. I want a long and fruitful, healthy career. I think it's the right approach for your kid. It's exciting to see that, but no disrespect to other families that have other plans.
Right, for sure. And what's exciting too, when I look at Carter Bryant, this is a player that, I've always kind of viewed him. And again, this is just me sitting in my guest room talking about it, so take it for what it's worth. But I've always viewed Carter Bryant, I think he's probably a 2-year player. And there's nothing wrong with that. When I look at him, and I think this is something that's very intriguing as well, he's not coming in here built like Stanley Johnson. He's not coming in here where you've already, you look like a grown man. He's still physically, and again, he's getting bigger and better, but he's still physically kind of immature. And if you're somebody like Chris Rounds, if you're somebody like an NBA, or if you're an NBA team, you're looking and you're like, man, there's a lot to work with there. We are getting a player that is far from capped here, Rhino.
Yeah, if he's already physically peaked and already the man, you would say, wow, okay, how much between where he is now and his potential is there for growth? And I think there's a ton for Carter because of exactly what you said, not only the physical side of things, but just the basketball acumen and his ability to have the size that he has at 6'8", the length, the athleticism. developing those perimeter skills. I think he projects more to be a three-man, a perimeter player in the NBA. And now everybody is a perimeter player in the NBA.
Yeah.
You got to have the ability to put the ball on the deck, be a knockdown shooter, be a 3-and-D. A 3-and-D guy is everybody now at the next level. Carter has that potential, and his growth opportunity is definitely exciting.
I know the game's different, but I do get annoyed with people that are like, well, you got to have a 5-man and a 4-man that can shoot threes. Otherwise, you're not going to be good. I always say this. I could put 2001 Arizona against any team in the NCAA this past year, and they're beating the snot out of them. So I don't, in UConn, whoever it is. So I get it that it's nice, but that team essentially on the perimeter had one really consistent shooter in Gilbert Arenas. RJ, Michael Wright, Lauren Woods, not really shooters, although RJ was an opportunistic shooter at times. But Gardner, good but erratic. That team would still beat sorry, pardon my language, it would still beat the snot out of pretty much any team. Again, it's awesome to have, but it's not a prerequisite for me.
Yeah, it was balanced. That team had a little bit of everything. When you looked at playmaking, defensive ability, could go off at any minute with Gilbert. You had shot blocking. You had a 4-man and Mike Wright who can finish at the rim, but also knock down the 15-foot jumper with regularity. You had an incredible IQ guy in Luke Walton coming off the bench. Yep. You've had Gene Edgerson and Lamont Frazier. Don't get me started on the 0-1 team, because that's one of my favorites of all time in regards to, again, they fit every hole. Every hole was plugged.
That's the best team in school history. You would agree?
Most talented, for sure.
Right.
If
Ryan Hansen has to take one team against the other U of A team, who's the great one? I know.
I'm gonna have some people on. Corey Williams is going to be calling me any second now, and other guys are going to be saying, "Hey, what about 88? What about 89? What about 94?" The 0-1 team, probably the most talented, again, filled the most holes. They were 3 minutes away from a title, and barring an injury to Luke Walton and Gilbert Arenas, and again, the most significant in-season off-court dynamic change with the death of Bobby Olson, like all of that, and we were still 3 minutes away from a title. I do think you have to point to 0-1 as the best team ever.
Yes, I would agree with that. Now, I wanted to get to a couple other players before we sign off here, but first, OGs. Got to pay the bills here, Rhino. Got to pay the bills. All right, here's the deal with OGs. Let's support local, all kinds of good stuff. Now, you say, Mike, what do they have? They got all kinds of good stuff. They got the fruits, the creams. Now they got vegan gummies with live rosin available in a sweet clementine flavor. Yummy, yummy in my tummy. To learn more about OGs gummies and where you can find them, head on over to ogsbrands.com. Just like me, you got to be over 21 to enjoy responsibly, but check it out. All kinds of good stuff. Again, clementine flavors. Do you like clementines, the actual fruit, Rhino?
I can't say that I've actually eaten a clementine.
You've never had a clementine.
So I may be missing out.
I bought some clementines the other day to prove to people that I actually eat fruits and vegetables. I will be eating these later. But either way, check it out. OGs, you'll thank me later. All right, two guys that I got to get your opinion on. I got to get your opinion on Henry Vasar and Conrad Martinez. When people ask me about these players, I tell them this. You got talent there. I have no clue what to expect. If you were to tell me that they were to, one of them was to force his way into the rotation, cool. If you were to tell me that they weren't playing a ton, cool. I got no clue.
Yeah. Will they be guys that are the true difference makers that get Arizona to a Final Four or win a Big 12 title? I don't know if those are the two guys that will be the difference makers. For everything that you said, just lack of opportunity with the injuries for Henry, lack of opportunity for Conrad, just a freshman trying to find his way as an international player. I think I'm going to trust Tommy in this situation, right? Trust that he believes they can be contributors in whatever way that they can be. I'm not sure if Conrad's going to be the answer for Arizona as a backup point guard earning 15 minutes a game. I'm just not sure if he can withstand the difficulties of a Big 12 road game, right? Can he contribute? I believe he can. I think his quickness, I think his tenacity, he's got a knack for the on-ball screen action and how he can get downhill and be a great passer, distributor, score himself in that action. Could he do that for 15 minutes? I haven't seen it, so I don't know. And I think your point of the unknown is probably more of the best way to label it today, Where is Henry Vasar? The injury puts him in a position where he could have a great impact. Could he be a 7-footer that can knock down threes? I think it's potentially there, but we have to, remains to be seen.
He's got a unique role that he could possibly carve out as a shot blocker, though, because I don't know that Mo's ever going to be a real shot blocker.
Agreed.
Trey Townsend and Awaka, not sure about that.
Yeah.
Henry Vasar is one guy that can run the court a little bit, and with as long as he is, and he's shown that he's got some shot blocking prowess. That to me could be the aspect that he could carve out there for himself, Rhino.
Yep, there's opportunity, and that's the point. Is there's opportunity and a little bit of some skill that we've seen, some physical talent, but he's got to stay injury free, right? And that's another thing. I hope he's not somebody who is just injury prone, and it was just a freaky thing, and it was the right thing to do to keep him redshirting for his own individual growth. So not looking to those two guys as being the major factors, but you need depth. There's going to be foul trouble. There could be injuries to other guys that they could be called upon, and how they insert themselves and grow this offseason will be important no matter what.
All right. Now, Halakikik. I always mess this name up. I do apologize. I have a big pet peeve here. Hal, you're smarter than me, so we're going to start with this. There are two things that are unacceptable for any Arizona fan, in my opinion. I can deal with the rest. Sean Elliott's name needs to be spelled correctly. There's 2 T's. Every time I look at that, it's like nails on a chalkboard. And Lute Olson, there's no E. There's an O at the end. Not saying you did that. Those are the 2 things. When people do that, I always feel the need to be a jerk and correct them, because no Bulls fan says Michael Jordan and spells it Jorden. Come on, people. We deserve better out of this. Nor does anybody say Ryan Hansen, Hanson. It is H.
Thank you. It's E-N, Danish, not Norwegian. I did see his comment, and trust me, the 88 team. Mm-hmm. Okay, first of all, great team, incredible numbers, offensively highest field goal percentage shooting team of the modern era. Yeah. Just great passers, really good future NBA players. 35-3, right? They were. Yep. Right on the doorstep with Oklahoma. So you're talking to 2 guys here that you and I have an appreciation for that 88 team. And no disrespect to your commentary here from your viewer. I just don't know, when I look at the in totality, does Craig McMillan versus Gilbert Arenas stand
that's where I'm at.
The litmus test? Does Tom Tolbert and Lauren Woods? Tom Tolbert was a ridiculous freak of a player at 6'7", 6'6" as a center. Different era in 88 versus 01. So this is kind of where you get into how would the Jordan era Bulls stack up against the Warriors now versus the Jerry West Lakers and the Bill Russell Celtics, right? Let's celebrate each of them in their own eras. But when I look at pound for pound, mano a mano, I'm just not sure if it stood up in a vacuum, those 2 teams against each other.
Yeah, and I think if you were to hold a draft of the 10 players, let's say top 8 players. There's probably going to be 5 from 01. And there's probably going to be, again, 88. If you want to say 88, I got no problems with that. Same thing with 98. If you want to tell me that 98's your team, cool. I'm just going 01 on that. I do have a question.
And by the way, I'm taking Sean Elliott number 1 in that draft.
By the way, and
01 versus 88.
What's also interesting about that, though, too, in that matchup is that, listen, Sean's the best player ever here, no doubt about it. But I will say, out of all the defensive players that have come through here, RJ might be the one that I would try to throw at him. So at least 01 just checked off every box.
You have somewhat of an answer. I still think Elliott comes out ahead in that.
Oh, he does.
But you at least have somebody who is not going to get blitzkrieged, play after play after play.
All right, I got 2 Rhino trivia questions before we sign off here. One of this brought me up. Which Arizona basketball team has spent the most regular season weeks ranked number 1?
That's a good question. 2003?
My man. Nobody ever gets that. I love it. Yep, absolutely. Now, can you name the 6 consensus first team AP All-Americans in U of A history? Sean was twice.
Wow, 6. So, yeah. So Sean for sure. I mean, Bibbs and Miles Simon, those guys were. So those 2, Sean, they're 6.
Yep, they're 6.
Oh wow.
You got 3 more.
Jeez. Now you're really stretching.
Oh, Rhino, you should definitely get these, Rhino.
First team consensus. First team
consensus. Yeah.
Damon.
Yep. You're at 4, and you're going to get these other 2.
I am.
You're definitely going to get
worried.
these other 2.
I'm worried about, like, is there one that's like
no. These are pretty. These are easy ones. These are obvious.
These are pretty
ones.
Obvious.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I want to say Khalid, but that one just
not
doesn't.
Khalid was second team. Crazy as it is, Khalid was second team.
That one doesn't seem right. Okay, you got me. My brain is. It's Friday. It's the end of the week. Jason Terry. Come on, jeez, that's embarrassing.
And DeAndre Ayton.
That is embarrassing. I'm the guy, right? DeAndre was here for such a short time period. There were so many issues that year. We lose in the first round. Like I'm sorry, I almost forget.
Yeah, I agree.
You almost forget the 8 months that he was on campus and that he was first team All-American. Yep.
But JT, there's no excuse, Rhino. JT,
none.
No excuse.
0. My apologies to the Jet. That is just that's embarrassing.
I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. What's amazing is you could come up with a list of guys that were second teamers, and I'm just thinking this off the top of my head. Khalid was a second teamer, which is still amazing to think about. Salim was a second teamer. Derek Williams was a second teamer.
Jeez. Was Chris Mills a second teamer?
Chris Mills was a third teamer. Yeah.
Third teamer. Okay.
I'm trying to think who else in all of this. Nick Johnson was a second teamer. You could come up with a second team against the first team. That's going to be a pretty interesting match.
Pretty fun.
Yes, exactly. Joseph, who's the 0-1 matchup to cover Cook from 88? Going with Lauren Woods. You got Lauren Woods, and then you got Michael Wright, and you got Tolbert. It'll be interesting. Yeah. But
let's remember the 88 team, Anthony Cook was the shot blocker. He was not a go-to offensive player. He might have been 3rd or 4th on the offensive opportunity list.
All right. Now, Rhino, bigger. Oh, by the way, I've had many people tell me this, including people on the show. Chris Mills, one of the last people that you would ever want to mess with. A guy that, give a, stay or don't be mean to Chris.
Be a friend.
Mills.
Be a friend.
Yes, very, very well. Be a friend. Maybe get him some Bon Voyage travel, my friend. But Rhino, before we sign off, where can they find you doing your stuff besides where we know you best from, doing a commentary with the GOAT?
Yeah, well, follow me on Twitter, UA Rhino, and it's RYNO. I'm named after Ryan Sandberg. He was the original Rhino, spelling it RYNO. But come bvtravel.com. That's the best way to track down vacations. All right, Rhino, as always, it's always a privilege, my man, and we'll get you on sometime again before the season starts, buddy. Appreciate it, Mike. Take care, man. All right, for Ryan Hansen, I'm merely Mike Luke. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.